The Oval Office meeting so disastrous it may spell the end of the US-Ukraine alliance. A day after fighting with Donald Trump in front of cameras, Volodymyr Zelenskyy is now shoring up support from European leaders, but will it be enough to undo the damage? It was all smiles, handshakes and hugs when Keir met Volod.
You're very, very welcome here in Downing Street.
Number 10 Downing Street offering a far warmer reception than 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue did just 24 hours earlier.
You see the hatred he's got for Putin. It's very tough for me to make a deal with that kind of hate. He's got tremendous hatred, and I understand that.
What makes America a good country is America engaging in diplomacy. That's what President Trump is doing.
The frostiness turning to outright hostility.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Zelenskyy was in Washington to sign a deal that would hand over half of Ukraine's rare earth minerals to the US for what was termed a joint development fund. But the signing never happened. Over 10 excruciating minutes, everything that could go wrong did.
You should be thanking the president for trying to bring an end to this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine that you say what problems we have?
I know what happens is you bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President.
Please, you think that if you will speak very loudly about the war,
He's not speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country's in big trouble.
Can I answer?
Wait a minute. No. You've done a lot of talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
We gave you, through this stupid president, $350 billion. We gave you military equipment. If you didn't have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3 days. I heard it from Putin. In 3 days. This is something
maybe
new.
Less.
In 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this, I tell you.
Trump demanding fealty.
You got to be more thankful.
Before turning to his favourite conspiracies.
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt. Russia. Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton. It was disgusting.
The world reacting in shock to the sight of a key alliance disintegrating in real time.
What Trump did was a disgrace to the United States, to the world.
I think Zelenskyy was humiliated. I believe that, in President Trump's mind, Zelenskyy deserved it.
They humiliated not only Zelenskyy, they humiliated all the dead and all these children who lost their parents.
You're not acting at all thankful. And that's not a nice thing. I'll be honest, that's not a nice thing. This is going to be great television, I will say that.
Well, here for what is hopefully a nicer time than Zelenskyy had in his chat is political journalist Nick Bryant. Nick, OK, very hard to watch, but just how bad was the meeting?
I'm watching that, I'm listening to that, and I'm still going, wow. Wow. Look, I've covered every president from Trump back to Bill Clinton. I've watched hundreds of these kind of Oval Office meetings. I've never seen anything even close to that. It turned into a cage fight. Now, in his first administration, Donald Trump told his aides to turn every day into a reality TV show in which he always ended up the winner. The problem with that meeting between Zelenskyy and Trump and J.D. Vance was it looked like it was programming that was designed for Russian state TV. They were literally parroting Kremlin propaganda. And Vladimir Putin must be doing cartwheels in Moscow.
Well, this is the thing. It can easily fall into the camps of, I don't like Trump or I agree with what he says. But how does this really ripple effect for international diplomacy? And are there going to be ramifications for it?
Well, there are huge ramifications for Ukraine to begin with. Trump's already saying he might end US aid to Ukraine in the fight against Russia. And they're already struggling, so that would be more battlefield gains for Russia. It would put the Ukrainian people under even more pressure. If there is a peace deal at the end of all this, it would be a more favourable peace deal towards Moscow and Vladimir Putin. And the problem is, Zelensky's been in London, he's been promised more aid from the Europeans, but they desperately need US help. They cannot fight this war without American assistance. And now Donald Trump's threatening to withdraw the very assistance they depend on.
Nick, do you think the President and the Vice President were deliberately trying to provoke Zelenskyy?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I've watched the whole tape. I mean, for 40 minutes, it was fairly conventional. Donald Trump even defended Zelensky at one stage when this kind of MAGA-friendly reporter said, you know, you turn up in these clothes, you're not wearing a suit, that's disrespectful for the Oval Office. Trump said, no, that's OK. But it really changed when J.D. Vance got involved. He's the vice president. He's becoming the sort of attack dog of this administration. It was like a tag team in professional wrestling. And it was like J.D. Vance just sort of hopped over the ropes and said, let me get at him. And then it went just absolutely pear-shaped. And then Trump got involved as well. And that's when it really went off the rails.
Do you think Zelensky played this badly?
Oh, it's really tricky. There's some people who say, well, he just sort of taken it on the chin. When J.D. Vance came after him, he just sort of sat there. It was reaching the end of this sort of availability before the press. He should have just ridden it out. But it's hard to sit there, right? You're the Ukrainian leader. You've been at war for 3 years. You're listening to the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States say the sort of things that Vladimir Putin says. So it's hard not to respond, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I want to know is, do you think there's going to be, like, from a political standpoint, I know that they've taken a lot of this deal off the table, but I can't help but think, where are the sides going to align around where Trump seems to be trying to cause this fissure?
Well, the Europeans are trying to shore up Ukraine, and they're also trying to shore up the transatlantic alliance, because this isn't only an attack on Ukraine, it's an attack on the very alliance system that America has depended on and Europe's depended on since World War II. I mean, it's like we're getting the fall of a Berlin Wall every single week right now. The earth is shaking. The geopolitical terrain is just being jackhammered by Donald Trump and his Vice President, J.D. Vance. And, you know, the dust is going to take some time to settle.
And as someone scarily pointed out today, it's only been 2 months.
That's it. Nick, really appreciate your time. Thank you.
You're welcome.